Hello, you're watching Telecom TV. I'm Guy Daniels, Director of Content, and as part of our Spotlight on 5G Week, we're going to discuss the importance of inclusion and the full accessibility of mobile services to everyone, and that includes people with disabilities who, for too long now, have been treated as something of a niche market by technology companies. And joining me today are Caroline Casey, who is founder of the Valuable 500, and Ronan Dunn, EVP and CEO Consumer Group at Verizon. Welcome both of you, and very good to be talking with you again. Caroline, you launched the Ability Awards with O2 back in 2004, I believe, and I know you've been working tirelessly ever since to get more global companies to support digital inclusion. What changes, though, with the arrival of 5G? Do you see this generational evolution from 4G to 5G as being an opportunity not only to raise awareness, but to make some positive and sustained changes in how the industry deals with accessibility?
Hi, Guy. I think the first thing to acknowledge is when the arrival of the 5G era is, and it's on the back of this global pandemic. And I think what's so important for us to recognize it is that accelerated our use of technology. I mean, everything is now done digitally and through the mobile, that it is put into place the issue and the requirement for all of our technology to be accessible. So 5G is exciting, and it comes at a time where we now need to look at baking in inclusive and universal design for everyone from the outset, and not leave people behind as we did in 4G and 3G. And our awareness to do that has been absolutely indisputable because of how we have seen COVID affecting how we all engage. And we can't unknow what we know. And I think business now are hugely aware of leaving the market, a market size of disability of 1.3 billion, worth 13 trillion behind, and seeing both the moral imperative and the business imperative of building that accessibility in from the outset.
So what must the industry do then, Caroline? You know, we were joined by your colleague at the Valuable 500 for our consumer panel at last year's DSP Leaders World Forum. And, you know, it was really apparent then that many operators and vendors are still looking for guidance.
Look, I think the big issue is with the Valuable 500, we now represent 20 million employees across 35 countries, 64 sectors and 8 trillion in revenue, with 500 of the world's most influential CEOs and their brands. And what's so extraordinary is the telco sector is the one that is the most represented. We have giants in each of the continents around the world. What we're really seeing is that business leaders and brands know this is not something that they have a choice on. It's no longer about the business case. It's about lost opportunity and risk-proofing their brands. And what we're seeing in the Valuable 500 community is nobody has the perfect answer. Nobody has the perfect benchmark or standard. This is something we're all going to hack a solution for together, and to do it collectively in community, because there is so much space for there's so much space to actually resolve this. That competition, yes, is important, but actually to get on top of this is collaborating, working together. And that's what we're starting to see, is so much more sharing of best practice and learning, and to really have the conversation using the voices of people with disabilities and their families at the table, and using the voices and expertise within their business, and tracking this into the consumer right across the supply chain. And this is not something that just sits in one small area of the business.
No, but it's really good to hear the support you're getting from the telecoms industry there. Ronan, how is Verizon supporting the movement to do a better job with accessibility and also, you know, ensuring no one gets excluded from what is an increasingly important and essential sector, mobile services?
So the first thing to say is we're delighted to be joining Valuable 500, and really the key there is we're building a coalition of the willing, people who have capabilities that can be shared to help all of us to advance the ball and move forward. And we're focused a lot on accessibility and affordability, but we also have to focus on digital awareness and digital confidence. And so one of the key areas that we're focusing around is Teach Access, which is a collaboration between disability advocates, industry, technology leaders, and others to create an environment in which people have the ability and the confidence to access the capabilities that are available through enhanced internet and enhanced connectivity. So really it's making sure that we make 5G the most accessible G ever by virtue of both the breadth of coverage, the affordability, and then the skills and competencies both within people and the ability to make sure that devices and other things are suitably designed to make them easy to use for everybody within our communities. So we have a specific program inside the organization, which is actually called Advance, which is looking at how we make sure the tech is physically and humanly accessible as much as possible, while also making sure that we partner with others to ensure there's that level of digital confidence out there so that people feel able to get on board and get engaged.
Yeah, let's hope they do feel involved then, they can get engaged. As you say, it's awareness and confidence as well, that's very important. Caroline, when we talk about disabilities, we're covering a very wide range. So does this mean that the solutions needed are also extremely diverse?
Absolutely. I mean, disability is a tiny word that covers so much. I have a lived experience of disability. I'm registered blind. That's the whole thing. There's no one size fits all solution. And I think that's often the greatest mistake. And I just want to acknowledge, like, some of the people and the teams that have been in Verizon have been working on this for a very long time. And you can see a very different experience of disability with people like Larry Goldberg, who is one of the founders of Teach Access. You can hear about Margot Joffrey, who is ADHD. You have people I've worked with within Verizon and O2 and Telefonica over the years who are hard of hearing, visually impaired, dyslexic. There is such a different range of how we experience technology together. And I think for me, like, can we just remember though, do you remember that text messaging was designed for people who've hard of hearing and we all use it? So this is your idea moving from, niche to normal. And remote controls, which we all use, were designed for people who are visually impaired watching television. So a lot of these lived experiences of disability are applicable for me as the individual, but actually are universally applicable for a broader market. And I think that's the exciting play, that all of those different experiences together reach a broader market.
Yeah, good points, Caroline. Ronan, our colleague Chris Lewis authored a report just this month on the business opportunity for the telecoms industry of addressing, the billion people with disabilities, and Chris tagged it at around like a $4 trillion value of economic spending power. Immensely large numbers there. So there's real commercial opportunities for operators and vendors, and yet it looks like we're still having to lobby for change. So, what's holding everyone else back here?
I think there are really two things. I think the understanding and awareness of how individuals are impacted by barriers to accessing the best of technology is something that we've more work to do on. And that's why things like Teach Access and others are helping us to have a better common understanding of what needs to be true to make technology truly accessible. The other thing that I'm very positive about is that form factor and other things can be massively innovated in a 5G world, particularly with things like mobile edge computing, that will allow us to create devices that are much more attuned to the specific, particularly people with physical disability needs, because the traditional phone or the traditional laptop can be reimagined in an environment where all of the compute and the related battery power can be taken out of the device. So I think this for me is it's really about the fact that, around the globe, in a true sense of diversity and inclusion, the truth is talent is broadly and equally distributed. It's opportunity that isn't. And what we need to do is apply the technology in a way that it matches talent to opportunity, because that makes good business sense for ourselves and for everybody who's in the technology chain, and frankly, everybody who is serving customers. The idea that you would exclude a significant proportion of your potential customer base just makes no sense at all. And one of the things that we're trying to make sure that we do is that it's an inside out look as well, so that the organization and its employment reflects the broad breadth of diversity in our society. And that way we're better able to meet and hopefully exceed the needs of all of the various interest groups, because actually we're doing it for ourselves, and great employee experience enables great customer experience as well. So for me, it's not just simply about serving customers outside, but it's creating the conditions in which we are an employer of choice for everybody, disabled, able, whichever way you want to describe it. Verizon should be the best place to work.
Good to hear. And it did sound also like 5G and related networking technologies do have a role to play going forward here. Caroline, we've been producing a big retrospective on 20 years of our coverage of MWC, and it's been quite eye-opening. And we first met in 2014, I believe, at MWC, and you were working alongside Telefonica then. Did you manage to reach more operators, and were they all as open and exclusive about accessibility as Telefonica obviously was even back then?
I've just been sitting listening to Ronan and him talking about where is the gap or the opportunity for me, and related back to 2014, is the leadership. Look, we have a leader in Ronan, and, Verizon and Hans Vestberger, who we have one of our iconic companies for phase 2 of the Valuable 500, which is all about leadership, intention, attention. Okay, that's absolutely, this is the game changer here, because the choices that leaders make are the cultures to which Ronan is speaking to. Back in the day with Telefonica, we worked with one brilliant company, and Cesar Aliarta, one phenomenal global CEO. But I'm really interested in global system change. I don't just want one company and one CEO. And whereas Telefonica was amazing and we still work with them and they're one of our Valuable 500, what would it look like if we had 500 Verizons, 500 Telefonicas, 500 Vodafones? That's where system change comes, when the peers and the leaders swap stories, talk about failure, talk about success, collectively put their power behind it. And that really was the point from 2014 with Telefonica in a small room. And now we're at 500 Telefonicas. I mean, GSMA is one. And if you look to see the scale and the importance of that, with Mobile World Congress, we are having a whole day now around inclusion. We're really speaking and putting disability and inclusion and accessibility on the main stage. That's the power of the multiplier effect of 500 instead of one fabulous company like Telefonica. But I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And I do recognize that.
Well, as you say, we have come a long way, and as it should be. A whole day there, that's absolutely terrific. And Ronan, whilst we were digging through the video archives, we found some of our very early interviews with you. And there's a couple of issues that you spoke about then, which are very relevant today. I'd love to pick up on some like 10, 15 years later. I mean, one of the first things we ever talked about was sustainability and the role that mobile could play, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, etc. It's been a hard sell and frustrating at times, but do you still have faith that telecoms can be a positive enabler of change here?
I absolutely do. And whether it's putting our own houses in order, most of the global telecoms giants now have made very explicit commitments to becoming net zero or better, including ourselves in 2035. But we've also issued 2 significant green bonds recently, so truly putting our money where our mouth is. But also the ideas inside the industry have advanced significantly, and the opportunity to use technology to massively reduce waste in our economy and society is also something that has advanced significantly since those early conversations when we were doing the O2 blueprints back in 2009, 2010. So I do think the industry has moved forward. And actually one of the initiatives, to the credit of Telefonica, that has broadened out even in the recent past is this idea of an eco rating for every one of the devices that carriers offer to their customers, so that customers have real relevant information when they're making choices between the different devices that they may choose to use. That, plus things like recycling, are meaning we're able to give a second and a third life to great technology. I mean, the compute power, as you know, in a current smartphone is more than what was used, to put a rocket on the moon. So we need to make sure that we use that capability wisely. So I'm very confident about the industry's not just delivery in that intervening period, but the fact that 5G can be a next wave of transformational effect to positively affect sustainability outcomes.
And one of the other things we spoke about when we were making the change to 4G, because this also touches on the issue of accessibility and it's very relevant here. You said at the time that the important factor for consumers wasn't so much the speed bump that they're going to get, but it was more about using 4G to upgrade the experience for users. Now here we are at the start of the 5G era. You're the CEO of Verizon's consumer group. What more can we do with the customer experience?
Well, the first thing to say is, and just to remind viewers and listeners, things like Airbnb, things like Lyft, Uber, Deliveroo, others exist because of what happened in that 4G era. Ubiquitous connectivity, apps-based, a real data interface that works, which was way, way superior to anything we'd seen in 2G and 3G. So our economy has changed significantly, and the nature of the services and experiences customers get has been transformed. So the industry, not just in its own customer service and experience, but has been an incredible enabler of a significantly enhanced level of experience for consumers generally. I think in the 5G era, the opportunity we have is to go even further. I talked about the idea of mobile edge computing. That is going to allow us to deliver different types of devices and experiences. Think about AR and mixed reality that can be made accessible and affordable at scale. Think about industrial IoT, which in the past, there's been lots of good ideas, but hasn't always been scalable because of cost. Well, 5G will usher in an era where 10 times as many connected devices per square mile or square meter, and with battery life enhanced by maybe 10x. All of a sudden, those devices have a much longer useful life. And as a result, the economics of many of the use cases, not just driverless cars, but lots of other things, will be significantly enhanced. And all of those are likely also to have a positive impact on how we tread as an economy and society, our footprint on the earth from a sustainability point of view. So I actually think there's a wave of innovation coming that will be even greater than what we saw in 4G. And when we look back, 4G was a massive shift.
Absolutely was. Thank you very much, Ronan. And Caroline, this has been a long journey, but if you look ahead at the rest of this decade, what's your hopes for accessibility and how the telecoms industry can leverage 5G and meet the challenges that you're setting them?
Well, I think the telecoms industry, it is probably the most important industry when we're speaking about leading around inclusion and accessibility. I mean, we do everything. We do everything through our phones. You've just heard Ronan speak to several Uber or Lyft or whatever. And so when I think about what we can do, if we go into a universal design from the outset to everything that we do, I guess, am I hopeful? Yes, because I think this is a moment, there's a burden on this industry, but there is an extraordinary opportunity for it as well. And I see that this is the tipping point. And I do think that we are going to start. So traditionally accessibility had been sort of a bolt-on or seen as cost or seen as something. I don't see it this way anymore. I think that is literally what the last 15 to 16 months has proven to us. This is just going to be the way we are going to operate, with a full and inclusive mindset. And organizations that are not ahead of that curve right now genuinely are at risk, not just because of the market that they're losing out on, to which we've referred to, which Chris referred to, but also it is really about the brands and how they stand up and that next generation that are coming afterwards. So I'm really hopeful. I don't even think it'll take a decade. I don't. I think the technology is advancing so fast right now, but right at its core, we need strategic leadership from the industry as a whole and from the CEOs and the leaders of these organizations to insist upon architecting this into our business as we would do anything else. It is not an add-on, it is an imperative.
Let's step up then and meet that challenge. Caroline and Ronan, thank you both very much indeed. Very good to talk to you both again. And a reminder that you can view an extensive series of programmes as part of our Spotlight on 5G Week, from interviews and roundtables to live Q&As and special features, all available right here on Telecom TV. For now though, thank you for watching and goodbye.